There we go. Thank you, Anissa. Thank you, Elizabeth. And apologies to everyone for the late start today. We've just been having a few technical problems, but welcome to Shifting from Grudge to Grit, Grace, and Gratitude. Today I'm hosting this conversation without my co-host Anissa, and I just want to acknowledge that she is terribly missed. However, we have a beautiful Elizabeth here with us, and we've got such an exciting, interesting topic that we will be chatting about today. And today we're talking about trauma bonds. And I think just before we go any further, I just want to say this clearly and make it very clear that if you have ever stayed in a relationship that hurt you, and if you have ever gone back when you promised yourself that you wouldn't, if you've ever felt ashamed for missing someone who caused you pain, there is absolutely nothing wrong with you. Trauma bonds are not about weakness. They are about survival, and they are about the nervous system doing its best to keep you safe. So nothing needs to be fixed today in the conversations that we're having, so there shouldn't be any pressure on anyone that's listening. And I'm saying this to myself as well, because it's things that we go through. It's something that we experience. And for me, today, we are just here to understand more. So what exactly is a trauma bond? For me, I think my understanding of it, Elizabeth, is that it's an emotional attachment formed through repeated cycles of pain and relief. And it's not just poetic language, it's actually neuroscience. When someone alternates between affection and withdrawal, kindness and cruelty, connection and abandonment, the brain releases dopamine, cortisol, and oxytocin in unpredictable amounts. And this is the same chemical patterns that we see in a gambling addiction. So you're not addicted to the person, you're addicted to the relief that follows the pain. And your body learns that this is where danger is, and this is also where safety returns. So our guest today understands this dynamic, not just intellectually, but viscerally. Elizabeth is a certified life coach and survivor of both overt and covert narcissistic abuse. She spent 16 years in a relationship with an overt narcissist. 8 of those years married to the person. And after her divorce, entered another relationship with a covert narcissist. After losing her 30-year corporate IT career overnight, what felt like devastation became the catalyst for her true calling. And today, Elizabeth remarkably helps women and men become emotionally bulletproof after narcissistic abuse. So, Elizabeth, I'd like to really, really, truly welcome you on. I've been looking forward to this. We enjoyed having you on the first time around. And after that introduction, I'll just leave you to say a few words about yourself and to say hello to our audience.
Well, thank you so much, Jamila, for having me on again to continue this important conversation. I am a narcissistic abuse recovery coach, and I didn't come to this sort of in my plans. As you already mentioned, I was in corporate America, and I was made to pivot when something catastrophic happened and I lost my job. But I love to say that was my liberation. And I was able to find this true calling and use what I have gone through to help others. And the last time that I was here, we talked more about narcissists, narcissistic abuse and what that is, and continuing the conversation, as you've already so beautifully stated, about the trauma bond. The trauma bond is sort of a hallmark of a narcissistic relationship, because of the things that you mentioned. There's this intermittent cycle of kindness and cruelty. Some of the terms that are familiar with if you're dealing with a narcissist, they say love bombing, devaluation, discard, and hoovering. That's just sort of, more labeling what that intermittent cycle of kindness and cruelty is. And they show up as Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. You never know which one of these people are going to show up. And you're always trying to get to who that person was when you met them. There's always that hope that even though things are not great right now, it's going to turn around. And so the trauma bond is difficult because leaving a narcissist, it's hard to leave them because the trauma bond keeps you tied to them. It's also difficult if you've made the decision to leave them. The trauma bond is also a reason why people keep going back. And, I know that before I got into any of this work or knew what a trauma bond or a narcissist was, I would just say, but they know this is unhealthy and hurting them. Why don't they just leave? And it is not that simple. And so if we can create some compassion and education and awareness about why they can't just leave, you can be a better support and a better friend to someone that you know who may be going through this. And if it's you going through it, you can have that compassion for yourself, because this is a chemical addiction. You mentioned dopamine and oxytocin and cortisol, and all of that is flooding your brain. So when you're trauma bonded, the brain is flooded with all these chemicals, and you get used to having them run through your system. It's a roller coaster. And the brain absolutely gets used to this roller coaster of things going, of these chemicals. And when you leave, you can absolutely go into withdrawal. It feels unbearable. And it's very much, we use the word addiction. It is like an addiction. And so to have compassion for someone who's going through this is really, really important, and not to just be judgmental. Just leave. Just leave, right? So it's really not that simple. Women keep going back because of trauma bond. They think that they're weak. It's not about weakness. And overcoming the trauma bond is not about willpower. It's about understanding what you're going through. And you literally have to detox from the toxic partner, and so that your brain has time to go back to normal levels of all of these chemicals that are just keeping you on high alert. It takes time for everything, your nervous system, everything to calm down. But the good news is that trauma bonds can be broken, and just understanding and having awareness of what you're dealing with can really be helpful about what you're dealing with, so that you can sort of make a plan. If you know ahead of time, there are physical, emotional, mental things that I'm going to be dealing with when I try to break this trauma bond, and put some support in place for yourself so that you can deal with it as healthily and as best as possible.
Yeah, this is it almost feels like it's impossible for you to leave, and you sit with judgment from those who are closest to you, and like you say, why don't you ask, why don't you just leave? And this is one of the most painful questions that survivors ask, is why didn't I just leave? But it's not as simple as that. And I think that what people don't really understand is that when you experience prolonged emotional threat, your amygdala, which is your brain's fear center, is constantly activated. It stays activated. And your prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for logic and decision making, goes offline, completely offline. So you can know something is wrong and still feel unable to act on that. And it's not a contradiction at all. So it shouldn't attach any judgment to it. This is simple, plain biology, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, like, Elizabeth, in your own experience, when you look back, did you ever feel like you were watching yourself stay, even though, like, you knew, even when you knew better, you watched yourself stay through it?
I absolutely did. Um, it was an experience that was very difficult because I always saw myself as an independent woman, a strong woman. I would never deal with somebody who was abusive, and I would certainly be able to know the signs if I was in an abusive relationship. You're a person who has things really, really in a good place in all other areas of your life. But when it comes to the relationship with somebody who's toxic, it seems like all of those things that go out the window.
Mm.
And when I was in the trauma bond, when I would think of him, I would physically double over in pain. I had a physical pain at even thinking about him. I looked for him everywhere. I looked for his car everywhere. I was always on alert that he's coming back. He's going to change his mind. He's going to realize the error of his ways. I became fixated, obsessed on him coming back. Mm-hmm. And also, I say the heart has amnesia, and I forget the bad times, which there were plenty of, and I only hold on to the good times. And I fixated on that. And part of the dilemma is you're in pain if you leave them. You're in pain if you stay. And so you're sort of saying, well, at least if I go back, I'll have some relief from this pain. And so you're always just, it's about the pain. You want to relieve the pain. And so what I want to mention is the temporary pain of when you're trying to release that trauma bond is something that you just really have to understand. This is part of the process. It's temporary. Going back to the toxic relationship is permanent pain. That will never end. And every time you go back, and it's so common to go back between 5 and 7 or more times, people keep going back. It doesn't change. What it does is it pushes off your healing every single time you go back, and you have to start from square one. But you mentioned you're not addicted to the person. You're addicted to this toxic cycle of abuse, and you want relief from your pain. And so if you know this ahead of time, education and awareness, then you can put supports around you so that you can deal with this very difficult time where you will have withdrawal symptoms and there will be pain involved, but it is temporary and you can get to the other side. Some of the ways that that you can begin to detox, is going no contact if you can, and or going very little contact. You really have to remove them from your life as much as possible. And that might mean just picking one way to correspond with them. If you have children, or you have to correspond with them, and to understand that not everything they say needs a response. And you only respond to the one thing, like you're not giving any extra information. You want to go no contact in every single way that you can. You absolutely, in your detox phase, you want to block them from your social media. You don't want to follow them on Facebook or any of the socials, because it's very common to be obsessively checking up on them. What are they doing? Who are they talking to? What are they saying? That is not helpful to you at all. If you can go no contact and block them from your phone and from your text and from your email, from absolutely anything, it really is best. But I understand if you can't, if you have children. But again, to be aware that following them and wanting to know about them, that's the trauma bond. That's not you. And it's also very helpful if you can distinguish in your thoughts and in your feelings what's the trauma bond and what's you. If it's negative, if it's hurtful, if it's obsessive, if it's negative in any way, it's not you, it's the trauma bond. And just to constantly speak to yourself kindly, and to sort of repattern thoughts that you might have into something that's going to be helpful for you. Like, for example, I'm spending all this time thinking about them. I'm going to just focus on putting all this time and attention into me and what I would love. So what would I love? And sort of making a list of things that I used to do before I met them that I stopped because maybe they didn't like it. And all the things that made me and interesting to myself and things that I used to just really enjoy and love, and spending that time focusing on sort of bringing myself back to life, getting in touch with what I like, because at the end of this, you don't even know what you like and you don't like anymore. Your sense of self is so chipped away.
Absolutely.
That you may not even know some of the basic things about yourself that you always did. And so it's a rediscovery of yourself. And so to pour all that time and attention into discovering who I am and who I want to be, what I love and what I want to do, is a gift that you can give yourself. And pouring into yourself is absolutely something that you have to do, not only during this time, but always. But that's also a concept that is strange and foreign. What do you mean pouring into myself? My focus has been the toxic person. My focus has been on regulating them and walking on eggshells and seeing if they're okay. And I've been on, survival mode.
Yeah.
And worrying about others. And I have not been on that priority list in forever. And
I think just to except here, it's like you say, your world just becomes about everybody else, about that toxic person first and foremost, and then everyone else around you, especially if you've got kids. And I'd just like to pose a question here to everyone who's listening, right? When have you overridden your inner knowing to actually keep the peace? Because that's what you need to do, right? When you're in this situation, in this kind of relationship, that's top of mind. Keep the peace, because you're in that survival mode, right? And you don't realize what it's costing you over time. Okay. And sometimes the cost isn't dramatic. Sometimes it's really it's just a slow erosion of your own self-trust. And that's what narcissists do to you, is that they, with the gaslighting, they bring upon this self-doubt within yourself. And I think it's one of the most damaging effects of narcissistic abuse is how it disconnects you from your inner compass. Because it doesn't just confuse you, it actually trains you to distrust yourself. Because you just in a state of not knowing anymore, because it's like you say, you're consistently walking on eggshells, and you don't know something that you might think you might be doing, with good intention, turns out with the most completely dramatic and opposite effects. So you continuously distrusting yourself. And I think research shows that when your reality is repeatedly denied, your brain adapts by outsourcing truth. And you begin relying on the other person to define what's real and what's not real. I'm sure you've gone through this, Elizabeth, when you realize that you no longer trust your own perceptions, and how that's dramatically affected your life and the decisions that you made, and ultimately your decision to stay, because you're in this consistent state of self-doubt and not trusting yourself. So rather be in a situation with the devil, than having that bravery and courage to leave and to find yourself in something new where you're actually not trusting yourself.
Absolutely. I have been there, and I lost years and years. And I lost myself
Yes.
through those years, and until one day it was my soul speaking, is what I say, is I stayed and lived this miserable life until my soul said, not one more day. And I found the strength from somewhere I never knew I had, from deep within. And I finally said, it doesn't matter what it's going to cost me to leave. I'm ready to go, and I'm ready to explore and be brave and to break this so that I can open myself up to a different possibility. It wasn't something that I thought about or planned, even though I'm a great planner. When it came to this, it was something within me that I didn't even know was there. And I just found a strength that I never knew I had. And I just want to let everyone know, you have a strength within you that you don't know you have. It's there.
Ah,
even if you don't feel like you have that strength right now. It's
yeah.
there.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for just being so vulnerable and sharing with us. And I feel your pain because I know what it is. I know what it's like to experience this. And I know what it feels like not knowing as well, because you don't realize that you are trauma bonded most of the time because it doesn't start with the abuse.
No.
It starts with connection, it starts with intensity, it starts with being made to feel like you were being chosen.
Yes.
Okay. And you don't lose yourself overnight. You lose yourself in small moments of self-abandonment. And I it's something I think that you will only truly understand if you've been through it yourself. Because there's parts of yourself that just become quieter and become smaller or less visible. And that's how you yourself start to feel. You become smaller, you become quieter, you become, unseen.
Yes.
Um, and you sit with that judgment of who you are, who you've become.
Mm-hmm.
And if you share with anyone, it's like you say, the judgment is there because it's easy. It's the easiest thing for someone to say, why didn't you leave? But like I'm saying, unless you've been in it and you understand it, and
Yes.
you've lived it, then only can you understand what it is. And when you do finally leave, also that withdrawal that you feel,
Oh, yeah.
and again, it's biology because your oxytocin drops, your cortisol spikes, your body starts to panic because now you're in that unfamiliar situation. And this is why I agree with you that no contact is the best thing unless it's unavoidable.
Yes.
But that no contact also feels unbearable before it starts to begin to feel more freeing. And missing someone who harmed you is not evidence that they were right for you.
No.
It's evidence that you were bonded.
Exactly. Exactly. Instead of telling yourself, this pain means I need to go back. This pain means, oh, he's the love of my life. It's looking at it from a different perspective.
Or the hope, right? And the fantasy.
Oh, the
Or
hope
that
is the last.
version or that version of yourself that you're trying to save.
The hope is the last thing to leave. You're always hoping it's going to be different. You're always hoping they're going to change their mind. You're always hoping, he's going to go back to the person that I first met. That hope, that false hope is something that you really have to call out. Really. And when these thoughts happen and you start calling chaos love, because that's what the trauma bond does. It's a liar, and it confuses you and says that this harmful relationship and everything that you went through and the chaos and the pain, that's love, when you need to tell yourself a different story. You need to understand what healthy love is. And when you put as much focus in knowing what healthy love is as you do in ruminating about the past, which was not healthy, then you will come to know healthy love is not confusion.
Yeah.
Healthy love is not intermittent pain. Healthy love is supportive. Healthy love wants to know who you are. They want the best for you. This is a foreign concept. Like, what is that? I'm always the one who's there for everybody else. Nobody's ever there for me. I don't even know what that concept is. But reciprocal, healthy love is definitely something that when you delve into, you start to say, I didn't have that, and I didn't have that, and I didn't have that. Wait a minute. What I think was love was abuse and a trauma bond. And so you really have to educate yourself about what healthy love is and what it isn't, and repattern thoughts of wanting to go back and wanting to fix something. And what if I didn't try hard enough, or what if I tried something different? And taking the responsibility to fix everything on yourself, that's not healthy love.
Yeah.
That's codependency. And so it's really looking at everything clearly, and coming out of the fog, and putting a support structure. I mean, if you have wonderful friends around you and family that support you, explain to them what you're going through and put a plan in place to be extremely busy doing beautiful things. Connect with friends. Connect with people that you haven't seen in a long time. Spend time with your family. Do fun things together, with yourself or with others. Go back to painting. Go back to riding, your horses. Go back to ice skating. Go back to the gym. Go back to singing in the church choir, or whatever it was that lit you up and gave you joy. Resurrect all these things that gave you joy and start doing them, because sitting on the couch and not doing anything and ruminating and watching movies all day is not going to help you on your healing journey of breaking the trauma bond.
Yeah.
Only very actively doing something that's good for you will help you start to loosen that grip. And the more you can loosen that grip, the clearer you will see. The more clear you see, then you can overcome the magnetic pull of that bond. You get stronger and stronger to resist the magnetic pull. I'm too busy living my best life. I'm too busy having fun. I'm too busy discovering who I am. I'm too busy pouring into myself and my family and my children and the things that I love and mean a lot to me. And I don't have time for the past. I only have time for what is good for me.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more on that. And I think from what I'm hearing from you, first of all, I just want to say that healing trauma bonds isn't about willpower.
No.
It's about finding safety. It's about regulation before reflection. It's about boundaries before forgiveness. It's about self-trust before new relationships. And from what I've heard, I mean, empaths and narcissists have this magnetic pull towards one another. And from my own experience, this is what, I can say is that you pour so much of yourself into everyone else that it's like you said, you forget who you are. You don't know what the things that make you happy. You don't know what are the things that inspire you and motivate you and create those juices for that zest for life, because you forget, because you're so busy being invested in that other person that you completely lose your identity. And I think that's what we need to get back to, is finding out that identity of who I am before anything else. Because if you don't know who you are, and this is a question that I wanted to ask you, Elizabeth, because you were in a relationship and marriage with a narcissist, and then you left that relationship, but subsequently got into another relationship with a different type of narcissist. Do you by any chance feel that you maybe needed that break in between to find your identity. Because once you find your identity, then only can you truly know what my boundaries are. Then only can you truly say that I believe in that intuition of mine. I believe in that internal self-trust.
Oh
Do you
gosh,
think
yes.
that is the case?
100%. Let my experience be a cautionary tale to everyone that if you don't take the time to get to know yourself, your values and your non-negotiables, what you will tolerate, what you won't tolerate, if you don't take the time to get to know your own boundaries, if you don't take the time to get to know who you are. And this is a process. This is not something that's going to happen right away. You need time to do this. If you don't take that time to know who you are and to build your strength from within, you are destined to repeat the same cycles. That's exactly why I attracted one narcissist to another. I was a perfect target. I won't say I didn't learn from the first one. It's just that as you mentioned, there was no time to reflect and to be with me and to connect with me and to do all those things that are so important in creating my own identity. I didn't take that time, and I paid a price. And I don't want anyone to have to pay that price. Because if you know yourself, when somebody comes into your life who steps on your boundaries and who sort of plays with your emotions and who starts sort of telling you what to do, you will be able to see what they're doing in a way that you couldn't before, because you were literally blind. You had no idea. If you take the time to learn about yourself, to learn about what you've been through, to figure out what I will no longer stand for in a relationship, and what's the relationship I do want. You have to know that as well. All of those questions you have to face. And so once you do know what you want and who you want to be, when someone comes into your life who tries to change any of that, you won't have it. You will kick them to the curb, and quickly.
Yeah. Look, you know what? You're not the only one to have experienced that. I certainly experienced it. I never thought that I would ever, because once I was out of my marriage, it was like, I will never do that again. But it creeps up on you, and yes, you've got to give yourself the luxury and the gift of putting yourself first and allowing yourself that time to understand you better. You've had the experience of both an overt and a covert narcissistic relationship. Can you just give us like a few key differences, just at a
Mhm.
glance, of what you're dealing with?
Absolutely. So, an overt narcissist is really somebody who lays it out there. They're not hiding who they are. I just didn't know what I was dealing with. All of the red flags were there. I just didn't know what to look for. I didn't even know what a narcissist was. I I was just a lamb, an innocent lamb at the time, believing everything they said. But so today I can thank the narcissist for being um, exactly who he was. He didn't hide the fact that he was extremely selfish. He didn't hide the fact that he was extremely jealous and
Mm.
possessive. When I look back, I can see things very clearly. He absolutely was isolating me from my friends and family. He would tell me he hated my coworkers and my friends. He, he was out there with what his opinions were, and I couldn't understand at the time what it is that was going on. I was so focused on him that I disappeared into the background, right? So, but an overt narcissist will actually show you who they are if
Yes.
you are watching for the signs. The covert narcissist was a completely different story and much more dangerous. They because they present so differently. They present as shy or vulnerable, quiet, and completely opposite the loud and the brash and the way that the overt narcissist presented. And so because he was so different, I said, well, he can't, he has to be very different than that last relationship, because he's nothing like him. He's shy and quiet and reserved and just completely different. However, they're just quiet and reserved about the fact that they want to control you, and that's pretty much the hallmark of every narcissist, is they want to control you. And so the second narcissist really broke my heart, because I didn't see it coming. And I didn't know what I was dealing with until I was really in the thick of it. And they're very good at hiding who they are. But you'll see the subtle signs of manipulation. You'll see the subtle signs of wanting you to change. They won't come at it, maybe harshly. Maybe it's much more subtle. But anybody who wants you to change who you are, anybody who wants to cross boundaries that you set, anybody who wants you to compromise yourself in any way, is not a good person for you. Whether they're being very brash and harsh about demanding that you do this, or quiet and subtle about planting seeds that they don't appreciate something, right?
Yeah.
So but in the end, their aim is the same, and they want you to change, and they want to control you. And so they just go about it very different ways.
Yeah, and I think the covert abuser is often more damaging, right? Because it leaves you in the state of constant confusion, because you self-doubting all the time, because their demeanor hides what their true intention actually is.
Yes.
So it leaves you confused and, asking yourself, is it me?
Yeah.
Am I losing my mind here? Which is absolutely awful, right? Because there are fewer clear incidents.
Yes.
And like you say, they appear to be so vulnerable, so kind, so quiet. And you constantly are internalizing blame, and you for sure feel like no one else is going to believe you.
Yes.
And maybe people won't believe you because that's their experience of who this person is.
Exactly.
But you are the recipient of them trying to control you. So your experience is really very real.
Very much.
And this often deepens that trauma, the trauma bond, because the victim stays trying to constantly fix things.
Yes.
Rather than to protect yourself, because you don't even believe yourself. And for me, I think there's a crucial reframe, because we need to understand that narcissistic abuse is about behavior, and it's not about labels or diagnoses or anything like that. You don't need to need somebody to be clinically diagnosed as a narcissist for the harm to be real. You don't need to prove that to anyone, and especially not to yourself. And I think that what matters most is how you feel in your relationship, whether your reality is respected, whether you can be heard, or whether you immediately dismissed, and whether your nervous system actually feels safe.
Yes.
And I think that's so important for us to acknowledge and understand and to hold close to ourselves,
Yes.
because if you're feeling smaller, or if you're feeling anxious or disconnected from yourself in any relationship, then something is wrong.
Yes.
Even if you can't name it, even if you can't put your finger on it, if you are feeling it, then there's something definitely wrong.
Absolutely. I overrode my gut feeling so many times.
Yeah.
And that is a huge mistake because your body knows
Yeah.
before you do. And so if you can just trust your gut and trust yourself and don't override what you instinctively know, that is so important.
Yeah. And I think for those, out there who have gone through this, just ask yourself this question about, what would trusting myself again look like? And it doesn't have to be in some huge big way or the other, but in the small practical ways. And not even all at once. Just today, set aside 5 minutes to ask yourself and to give yourself that gift, because we just rarely do that, and we just continue to move on, and before your life, your life is 1 decade later or 2 decades later, because you just never had the time, or felt you deserved the gift or the luxury of asking yourself that again, or considering what self-trust is and what it
Absolutely.
means to you.
Absolutely. So well said. And I can't tell you the numbers of women and men, but I mostly deal with women, but the decades, 10, 20, 30 years and more that they have wasted because they didn't put themselves first, because they didn't trust their gut, because they were
Hmm.
always worried about the other person instead of me and what would I love, and and is this healthy, and even being able to answer, do I want this relationship, and wanting and choosing something different for themselves. I
Yeah.
don't want people to waste their precious time somewhere where they shouldn't be.
And Elizabeth, that we're speaking today about relationships, right? And marriages and all that. You spoke about how you moved from one narcissistic relationship to another. And again, you said you didn't allow yourself the time. But not all narcissistic relationships begin here, when you are at this stage in your life. Not all trauma bonds are created only in these relationships. So when we speak about identity, when we speak about getting to know ourselves, we can also experience these trauma bonds from a parent-child relationship.
Oh, yes.
And it goes back, way back to those earlier connections that we've had. And because we haven't dealt with it or understood who we are and what we were experiencing, it then ripples over and flows into our adult relationships that we are having with potential spouses.
A
Um,
100%.
so we need to address those as well, because that's what's leading to us get into these unhealthy relationships, by us not healing those trauma bonds that we have had perhaps from childhood, right?
Absolutely. We all have childhood wounds. if you're a human, you have a childhood wound. And absolutely, it's very important to look at the people that were around you, the things that you made meaning of when you were a child that are unconsciously running your life today. And that's part of the reason why you fall into patterns of maybe attracting unhealthy people or whatever it might be. Absolutely, patterns are established, and getting to the root of the problem is going to be doing that childhood trauma work for sure.
Yeah. And would you say, and would you agree that trauma bonds are not nervous system responses? They are not personal failures.
Oh, they are absolutely not a personal failure. And you mentioned before, it's not about willpower or being strong. It's about giving yourself, your body, and your mind time to detox from these intense chemical bonds that are also at play in your brain. And trauma bonds are made to be broken. They can be broken. And believe it or not, when you are on the other side of a trauma bond, that person is just someone that you used to know. There is no tension. There's no feeling about this person that you were so crazy about before. It's like, I don't even know why I was crazy about them. Why did why was I attracted to them in the first place? It's so crazy that when you're on the other side, that you look back and say, I don't get it.
Yeah. Would you say that it's actually the opposite, because you then suddenly realize that you're now crazy about yourself?
Oh, 100%. All of
That
that time and
self-love.
attention that you put into somebody else, when you turn that inward and
Yeah.
fall in love with yourself, that has been like the biggest gift to myself, is getting to know me, love me, and staying connected with me. That is the biggest gift. And since the outer world reflects your inner world, only good things are going to come as you work on yourself, as you heal yourself, as you pour time into yourself, create your identity, all the things that we've been talking about today that are so critical. The outer reflects the inner. And so always, always choose you, and always, always invest in you.
Absolutely. And I think that self-love and self-trust are the true opposites of trauma bonding,
Yes.
because it's that bond and the strength, or the creation and growing strength of that bond within yourself. That then allows you to understand and to reframe and to realize that leaving actually just it doesn't require strength, it requires safety, right?
Yeah.
Confusion that you may feel when you're in these relationships is often a sign of manipulation,
Oh, yeah.
and it's not you losing your mind. And even if you've left, missing that person doesn't mean that you belong to them.
No.
And you should allow yourself to feel it, but feel it with that sense of knowing that I feel it, I hear it within and I let it go.
Yes, very much so. Grief is going to be part of the letting go and of healing the trauma bond. All of that is okay. And as you said, none of the things that you're feeling as you're going through the trauma bond release mean this is proof that I should be with them. No, it's quite the opposite. Confusion, as you mentioned, is never a healthy state. If you're in a healthy relationship, you're not confused about how they feel about you. You're not confused about whether they support you. You're not confused about how they feel about you, period. Like, you feel safe. The word safety is extremely important. If you don't feel safe, if you don't feel like you can just be you and that's enough, something is wrong. And please listen to that.
Mm, mm. Gosh, this has been such an interesting and conversation, and I've been waiting for this. And I mean, I hope that our listeners can go back to the first episode when you joined us and understand why it was so important for you to come back, because we didn't quite have enough time to touch on everything that we've been speaking about today, about the trauma bonding. And like we've spoken about today, we often don't even know what a trauma bond is. There's so many. So how are we ever expected to recover from any relationship that is abusive in this sense if we don't understand why we were in it to begin with?
Exactly.
So
to have compassion for yourself.
Yes.
And if someone you love is going through this, please have compassion for them. It's not as simple as just leaving.
And tell me a little bit about that and about how you were able to forgive yourself, because that's really important, right? Having the compassion for yourself, but also just forgiving yourself. How did you go through this so that you could get to this space where you understood that this wasn't my fault?
That took me a very long time to come to be honest. I held on to unforgiveness of him, and I felt like I had to hold on to that anger and the unforgiveness, because if I let it go, then I would forget what I went through, and I couldn't allow myself to ever forget. But that thinking just prevented my healing, is all that it did.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me a very long time to come to know that the best part about getting to the other side is that I do forgive him, and I do forgive myself completely. Because holding on to unforgiveness was just holding on to more suffering, and I don't want to contribute to my own suffering. And also unforgiveness blocks your blessings. I don't want to block my own blessings. And so for all of those reasons that are very important, I chose to forgive. It's a decision. It was a decision to forgive myself and him.
Mm-hmm.
And it started slowly. It started with, I wish you well, and sort of like kicking him out of my mind. Like, that's all I could say. But you know what I said to myself? I would wish a dog on the street, I wish you well. So if I can wish a dog on the street well, then I can wish him well. I can wish me well.
Yes.
And so it started very, very small. I wish you well. And then I just kicked them out of my mind. But instead of hanging on to a negative feeling, I hate your guts, whatever. I just said, no, I wish you well. And after time of doing this over and over and over, I actually mean it. I do wish him well. I wish everyone well. I can't wish harm on anyone, including me. And that's why forgiveness is so, so important. It frees you. Healing, forgiveness heals you. It frees you. And when you let go of them completely and of those negative feelings completely, you just make space in your life for more wonderful things. And you can start small.
That's amazing. Elizabeth, it's been such a pleasure to have you on. It really, really has. And I hope that you will come on again because, like we say, this is just a never ending conversation with all of the wisdom that you bring to this topic and all the people that I'm sure you've helped along the way. We're so, so grateful that you could spend this time with us. And as we close, I just want to leave everyone with one final reframe. And if you believed that staying was about survival, not failure, how would you speak to yourself differently? What tone would you use? What kindness would you allow yourself? And these questions, let these questions meet you with compassion and not pressure. Healing doesn't begin when you leave. It begins when you stop shaming yourself for staying. And, thank you for allowing this conversation into your heart. Thank you, Elizabeth, for sharing so kindly and so vulnerably. And until we meet the next time, I just want everyone to remember that you were never weak. If you've been in the situation, you were never weak. You were surviving.
Mhm.
And until you know that, then only can you forgive yourself, and then only can you allow yourself to let go of any judgment toward yourself. And I think when we are able to let go of that self-judgment, that's when we realize that we are in no position to judge anyone else.
Mhm.
And I think that's where the forgiveness comes in, and that's where the kindness comes in, and where you start to build and just be a better you than you ever were, and to understand that we go through these things in our lives, and as horrible and nasty as it might seem, we were chosen to experience these because you were chosen, Elizabeth, to help so many other men and women out there. Had you not had this experience, you'd never be able to help with the honesty and conviction that you do share with.
Yes,
So
sure.
I must say thank you to you. I must say thank you to everyone who has commented. Unfortunately, we haven't had time to read any of the comments, but we will go back. The session is available for you to have a look at, to comment on, even if you were not a part of this live session. I did miss our co-host Anissa today, and I'm sure that she will be watching this when she's able to. But Elizabeth, thank you, thank you, thank you for
It's
your
my
wisdom,
pleasure. Thank
and just for being a part of this. It's such important issues to talk about, and you've given us so many golden nuggets. I'm so, so thankful. Thank you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure, and I look forward to coming back.
Thank you so much. Well, have a wonderful weekend ahead and a lovely festive season to everyone. Hope you are safe wherever you are. We will see you again next week, same time, same place, and next week we'll have Anissa with us again. So goodbye and thank you.